You know exactly who this is. The green paint, the aggressive decals, that massive, smug mustache. Even if you haven't watched the movie in 10 years, you can hear his voice in your head right now. Chick Hicks, the runner-up, the cheater, the guy who ruined the King's final race just to grab a piece of metal. For almost 2 decades, we have collectively agreed that this car is the definition of a villain. We hate him because he is arrogant, he is loud, and he plays dirty. But what if I told you that we have all been reading the story completely wrong? What if I told you that the Chick Hicks we see on screen isn't a villain, but a tragedy? See, most people just watch the movie and see a bad guy doing bad things. But I have spent the last week digging through deleted scenes, official comic books that you have probably never read, and the hidden statistics of the Piston Cup racing series. And the picture that paints is terrifying. It is not a story about greed. It is a story about what happens to a person when they are systematically broken down, abused by their own mentors, and forced to survive in a world that refuses to love them unless they win. If you have ever felt like you were working twice as hard just to get half the recognition, or if you have ever felt like you had to put on a mask and act like a jerk just to protect yourself from getting hurt, then this story is going to hit you really hard. We are going to deconstruct the psychology of the most hated car in Pixar history, and by the end of this, you are not going to hate him. You are going to want to give him a hug. Because the truth is, Chick Hicks didn't start out as a monster, he was made into one. And to understand how that happened, we have to ignore everything we think we know about the Piston Cup and look at the dark reality of where he actually came from. It starts way back in 1980, long before Lightning McQueen was even manufactured. This is the part of the story that changes everything. To understand the monster, you have to look at the manufacturing date. Chick Hicks was born on August 6, 1958 in Chicago. But the tragedy starts with exactly what kind of car he is. He is a 1979 Shyster Kremlin. Now, unless you are a die-hard gearhead, that name probably doesn't mean much to you. But in the social hierarchy of this universe, being a Shyster Kremlin is like being born with a target on your back. It is a boxy, ugly, working-class vehicle that has absolutely no business being on a racetrack. Imagine growing up in a world where your physical body is the punchline of a joke. He wasn't built for speed like a Corvette, or built for power like a truck. He was built to be average. And this is where the first major psychological crack appears. Because deep down, the young Chick Hicks wasn't angry. He was expressive. There is a very strong theory, backed by deep lore analysis, that Chick was originally a theater kid. I know that sounds ridiculous, but stay with me. One of his future pit crew members, a forklift named Bruiser Bykowski, was his childhood friend from drama club. When you look at Chick through this lens, everything changes. The giant mustache, the excessive stickers, the loud catchphrase, that isn't his personality. That is a costume. That is a performance. He created a character called the Thunder, because the real Chick Hicks was too soft for the world he wanted to enter. But why did he feel the need to hide his true self? The answer comes from a source almost nobody talks about. It is from the official Boom Studios comic series, specifically the Rally Race arc. This is where we meet his father, and this is where your heart should break for him. His father wasn't a Kremlin. He was a Ford Mustang, a muscle car, a symbol of power and dominance, and he was a tyrant. In the comics, we see a flashback to a young Chick Hicks in one of his very first races. He is actually winning. He is driving clean. He is fast. But then, something happens that completely destroys the narrative that Chick is inherently evil. A competitor crashes in front of him, and without hesitation, the young Chick Hicks slams on his brakes. He stops. He gives up his lead and sacrifices his win to make sure the other driver is okay. That is who he really was. A good kid with empathy who valued life over a plastic trophy. But then he gets back to the pits, and his father is waiting. The Mustang doesn't praise him for his sportsmanship. He doesn't tell him he did the right thing. He destroys him. He screams at him in front of everyone, telling him that their family does not coddle losers. He drills it into his head that compassion is weakness, and that the only thing that matters is crossing the finish line first. Think about that for a second. The one time he showed his true self, the one time he acted with kindness, the person he loved most in the world rejected him. That is a traumatic event that rewires a developing brain. He learned a brutal lesson that day. He learned that being good gets you punished, and being ruthless gets you love. So he buried the theater kid. He buried the empathy. And he spent the next 20 years trying to become the monster his father wanted him to be. But the saddest part is that even when he became that monster, the world still refused to let him win. For the next 15 years, Chick Hicks did exactly what he was supposed to do. He didn't start cheating immediately. In fact, if you look at the records from 1979 to 1995, you see a completely different driver. He was sponsored by a company called Kazsen. He was fast, he was disciplined, and he was undeniably talented. We are talking about a car that secured 48 career wins and 34 pole positions. He won the Los Angeles 500 twice. He took home the B&L 600. By any standard metric, he was a Hall of Famer. But none of those trophies mattered, because no matter how perfect his laps were, there was always one blue Plymouth Superbird standing in his way. Strip Weathers, the king. This is the part of the tragedy that feels almost like a curse. Chick wasn't losing to random cars. He was losing to a literal legend. Between 1988 and 2004, Chick Hicks finished second in the championship standings 7 separate times. 12 times in his career, he crossed the finish line looking directly at the king's bumper. Imagine that for a second. Imagine being one of the greatest athletes in the world, waking up every single morning at 4 a.m. to train, pushing your engine to the absolute limit, and doing everything right, only to be told over and over again that you are just the first loser. The commentators, Daryl Cartrip and Bob Cutlass, didn't call him a champion. They gave him a nickname that stuck like tar: the runner-up. That name isn't just an insult. It is a psychological prison. For a car raised by a father who believed second place was a disgrace, that nickname was torture. It confirmed his deepest fear that he wasn't enough. And eventually, something inside him just snapped. In 1996, the clean racer died. Chick realized that skill wasn't enough to beat a legend. So, he changed the game. He dropped his old sponsor and signed with a new team that perfectly described his new philosophy: Hostile Takeover Bank, HTB. This wasn't just a business deal. It was a declaration of war. He stopped looking for the fastest line around the track and started looking for the fenders of his opponents. If he couldn't beat them with speed, he would beat them with physics. He started crashing. He started bashing. He started embracing the hate because, in his twisted mind, being hated was better than being ignored. And that brings us to the year 2005, where a desperate, aging gladiator finally saw his chance to win, only to have a rookie try to take it away from him. By the time we get to the final tiebreaker race in Los Angeles, Chick Hicks isn't just racing for a trophy. He is racing for his survival. The king is retiring. This is it. There are no more next years. And then he sees it happening again. A rookie, Lightning McQueen, is about to take the spot that Chick spent 20 years bleeding for. This is the moment where the trauma takes the wheel. When he slams into the king, sending a legend tumbling across the infield in a catastrophic wreck. That isn't just dirty driving. That is a man who is terrified of being forgotten. He isn't just trying to hurt the king. He is trying to kill the part of himself that is a loser. He executes the exact philosophy his father beat into him. No mercy. Win at all costs. And he does it. He crosses the finish line first. Technically, Chick Hicks is the champion. He climbs onto that podium, and for a split second, you can see the genuine joy in his eyes. He thinks he finally did it. He thinks he finally earned the right to be loved. But then, the confetti falls, and there is no cheering. There is only silence, followed by the sound of 40,000 people booing him. He stands there, holding the piston cup, the one thing he sacrificed his entire soul to get, and he gets hit with tires and trash. The contrast here is brutal. McQueen stopped to help a crashed car. just like Chick did when he was a kid. McQueen lost the race, but won the respect. Chick won the race and lost his dignity. The aftermath was catastrophic. Dynaco, the sponsor he destroyed his reputation to impress, turned their back on him immediately. Even his own team, Hostile Takeover Bank, fired him shortly after the race because nobody wanted their brand associated with the car that wrecked the king. He won the title, but he became a pariah. He walked away with a piece of metal and absolutely nothing else. After the confetti settled, the reality set in. The statistics don't lie. In the very next season, 2006, the reigning champion completely fell apart. He didn't win a single race. He plummeted to 16th in the standings. The psychological weight of being the most hated car in the world was too heavy to carry. So, in 2007, Chick Hicks quietly retired. But he didn't disappear. And this is where most people get the character completely wrong. In the third movie, we see him as a TV host on the Racing Sports Network. He is loud, he is obnoxious, and he has that Piston Cup trophy bolted to his desk. He brings it up every 5 seconds. It is annoying, right? That is what the movie wants you to feel. But look closer. From a psychological perspective, this isn't arrogance. This is a desperate defense mechanism. He is displaying that trophy like a shield. He has to keep reminding everyone, and more importantly, reminding himself that he is a winner. Because if he stops talking about that trophy for even 1 second, the silence will be filled with the reality that nobody respects him. He is stuck in a loop of overcompensation, trying to prove to a world that has already moved on that he still matters. It is tragic, but it is not the end of his story. And this is the part that convinced me that Chick Hicks is not a villain. It is a detail hidden in a comic book called Rally Race that takes place after the first movie. Chick goes to Radiator Springs for a charity event. At first, he acts like his usual self. He makes fun of the town, he mocks the idea of charity, and he treats everyone like dirt. But then, during the race, he gets a flat tire. He is stranded, and the only car that stops to help him isn't a race car. It is a little disabled car named Timmy, who has a crooked wheel. Timmy doesn't care about the fame or the hate. He just sees someone in trouble, and he helps Chick cross the finish line. And in that moment, the mask cracks. Chick looks at Timmy, and he sees himself. He sees the young, kind kid he used to be before his father beat the empathy out of him. And what happens next is the most important moment in Chick Hicks' entire life. There are no cameras, there is no audience. There is no glory. But quietly, without telling anyone, Chick Hicks takes his entire prize purse from that event and donates every single cent to Timmy's medical fund. That is not the action of a villain. That is the action of a man who finally remembered who he was. He didn't do it for the applause. He did it because, for the first time in 30 years, he allowed himself to be the good guy. He proved that the theater kid was still in there, buried under layers of green paint and fake confidence, just waiting for someone to finally show him a little bit of kindness. So, when we zoom out, the story of Chick Hicks is not really about a bad car. It is a mirror held up to the dark side of ambition. It is a story about the terrifying cost of validation. We are taught from a young age that winning is the only thing that matters, but Chick proves that winning the wrong way is actually worse than losing. He got the cup, but he lost his soul. And it took a small, broken car like Timmy to remind him that he didn't need a trophy to be valuable. He just needed to be kind. We all wear masks to survive. We all feel that pressure to perform, to be the best, to hide our vulnerabilities, because we are afraid the world will eat us alive if we show them. Unpacking these psychological layers is difficult, but it is necessary if we want to stop the cycle. If you enjoy this kind of deep, analytical approach to stories, where we don't just look at the surface, but we look at the psychology behind it, I want to invite you to join our private community. It is a place where we discuss these hidden narratives and support each other in finding the truth behind the noise. It is where the real conversation happens, and I would love to see you there. Because at the end of the day, Chick Hicks is a warning. He is a warning that if you kill your empathy to feed your ambition, you will end up alone in a TV studio, polishing a trophy that nobody respects. But he is also a beacon of hope, because if the most hated car in history can find redemption in a quiet, secret act of charity, then maybe there is hope for the rest of us too. He isn't the villain. He is just a guy who got lost and is finally trying to find his way back home. Now, if you want to see the other side of this coin, you need to understand the car that Chick destroyed. There is a reason Strip Weathers was so calm when he crashed, and it is not what you think. Click this video right here to find out why the King didn't actually lose that race. He escaped. It completely changes the ending of the movie. I will see you over there.